Many places in the world have been crossing points for rivers, mountain ranges, animals, or people. In order to develop new settlements, roads, railways, trade routes, and highways were opened. One of those places is in the southwest of the United States, where crossings have happened for hundreds of years. Welcome to Albuquerque. By far the largest urban setting in lightly populated New Mexico, Albuquerque contains almost a third of the state's citizens. About 37% of Albuquerque's inhabitants are Hispanic, one of the highest Hispanic percentages of any major city in the United States. Approximately 57% are Anglo or mixed European, 3% are African American, about 1% are from Asia-Pacific origin, and 3% of Albuquerque are Native American. What is today the city of Albuquerque in New Mexico has roots which go back to times in unrecorded history and explain the mosaic of races. Looking due west from virtually any point in Albuquerque, you can see the familiar outline of volcanoes. Just 1 mile east of the volcanoes, a serpentine wall of black rock stretches north and south for 17 miles. This is the West Mesa Basaltic Escarpment. The escarpment and volcanic landscape is rich with hundreds of archaeological sites, indicating that for thousands of years this has been a multi-use area. Perhaps the most precious archaeological feature is an extraordinary major concentration of prehistoric rock art, the petroglyphs. The first human activity in this region dates back 12,000 years, but most of the 17,000 petroglyphs originated between 1300 and 1650. In that time, the Anasazi and Mogollon Indians were the inhabitants of this land. The history of the Anasazi is still a mystery due to the absence of written traces. The gradual settling of hunter-gatherers associated with development of agriculture produced the emergence of a new culture called pueblos, referring to the villages built with bricks. Since 1300, the Anasazi took refuge in the Rio Grande Valley. Their traces are lost shortly before the Spanish arrived. The reasons for this exodus are not known. There are several hypotheses. It could have been that climate change threatened the harvests, overpopulation, perhaps war. However, given the absence of written documents and the limitation of current knowledge, it is not possible to prove any of these assumptions. Then, in 1540, came the conquistadors. Francisco Vázquez de Coronado passed the spot in his search for gold in the fabled 7 cities of Cibola. During the passing years, previous settlements were attempted, but in 1680, the Indians revolted against the Spanish and laid waste to everything the white man had built. The official records begin in 1706. The governor of the province of Nuevo Mexico those days was Don Francisco Fernández Cuervo y Valdez. The name of the newly founded city of New Spain became La Villa de San Felipe de Neri de Albuquerque, That name pleased the King of Spain, Philip V, the Church, with the name of Saint Philip de Neri, and also the Viceroy of New Spain, Duke of Albuquerque. But in 1806, Zebulon Montgomery Pike, an explorer in the United States, passed through the town. His map of the trip drops the letter R from Albuquerque and labels the friendly community Albuquerque, the misspelling of the original name that persists today. Don Francisco persuaded and recruited 12 families to move 18 miles to the north from another town, Bernalillo, and locate their new homes and farms in Albuquerque. The lands surrounding the site of Old Town, when irrigated by the waters of the Rio Grande, were fertile and strong enough to bear many years of crops of corn, fruit, grapes, and wheat, as well as raising of sheep and cattle. Albuquerque was founded in a place where a very important commercial route passed through. Its location on El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro contributed to its survival. It was the principal artery of travel and trade that linked Albuquerque with both Santa Fe, Chihuahua, and northern New Mexico. Of the great highways leading north, this was the oldest, having been extended by segments throughout the 16th century. As the first road passed through the town, for a time it also enjoyed the distinction of being the longest road in North America. The Spaniards did not invest in road construction in New Mexico, and the overland route was long and difficult. It often took longer to travel from Mexico City to Santa Fe by burro than it did to travel from Mexico City to the Philippines by ship. During the Hispanic period, Albuquerque did not seem destined to become the major city that it is now. Santa Fe was the most important center in the state. Whether or not Albuquerque could have lasted very long as a growing community under Spanish rule is not known because the development of the town was essentially ensured by the opening of the Santa Fe Trail and the migration of Anglos from the east. Although Albuquerque became an official part of the United States in 1848 with General Stephen Watts Kearny's conquest, most of the Anglo influence did not penetrate this remote region until after the Civil War. At the end of the Civil War, Albuquerque took on some of the appearance of the usual frontier towns. That is, the population now included some U.S. soldiers, Anglo businessmen in the wagon train business, a few Anglo ranchers, and a more heterogeneous group of Indians. The town also supported the new required service industries, particularly saloons and hotels. Then a new visitor relegated the portion which today is known as Old Town to the past. What is today the Rail Runner Express began April 24, 1880, with the opening of the first train station in the town. The Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway brought about the tremendous growth and expansion of the city. The Judge Hazeldine was responsible for talking to the people that big day.
This day, the most important to the citizens of Albuquerque, of any event in the past or future, of her onward march of progress, wealth, and happiness, the railroad, with links of steel, bind us to the east, and its onward march to Guaymas will connect us to the Republic of Mexico. The commerce of this nation will pass through the valley, and the road to the Pacific will make Albuquerque a great railroad center. The rich trade of China and Japan will pass over this shortest and quickest route, free from frost and snow, blockades, with a genial climate leaving it without a rival for much of the year when other routes are blockaded with snow. With these advantages, New Mexico has a territory large enough and is rich enough in mines and timbers and grazing plains to sustain an empire of people.
The railroad put an end to the old part of Albuquerque as a commercial center. It was no longer the main part of town, starting the development of the city in other directions. It was the beginning of the big highways. For people across the U.S. and around the world, historic Route 66 embodies the American spirit, conjuring thoughts of freedom, adventure, opportunity, and the open road. Until the mid-1930s, Central Avenue, east of the University of New Mexico, consisted of a few motor courts, gas stations, campgrounds, and one cafe. Although Route 66 had already crossed New Mexico, it was a convoluted path. In 1937, Route 66 was straightened out and headed directly west across the state, reducing the journey across New Mexico by 107 miles. With Route 66 as the only paved road crossing New Mexico, development began to spread east and west along its shoulders. Entrepreneurs sparked into action as the tourist stream flowed down its new course. Suddenly, travelers were driving through Albuquerque. Central Avenue was no longer just a county road. Motels with neon signs competed for travelers' attention, and retailers and restaurants vied to meet their needs. Coinciding with the unimpeded sink in railroad success was an upsurge in freeway construction. Alignment began in 1956 for the North-South Interstate 25, the Pan American Highway, and the East-West Interstate 40, which replaced Highway 66. The interchange, where the two crossed, was completed in 1966. Central Avenue, whose businesses had served cross-country travelers since the advent of the automobile, fell into an economic slump. This is how the Big I was born. The interchange, reconstructed between 2000 and 2002, is the busiest interchange in the state, handling an average of 300,000 vehicles per day as of 2000. After the reconstruction, the hours of annual delay dropped from 16 million to just 1.1 million after the completion of the project. With the completion of the interstate, Route 66 travelers eventually gave up their slow, romantic journeys through enchanting New Mexico to drive it at speeds of 60 to 70 miles an hour. In 1955, Albuquerque's Route 66 had 98 motels. By 1992, only 48 remained, and today, most hotels and motels on Route 66 are national chains. Only a few family-owned motels of historic significance remain. Albuquerque continues to grow. The city population increased by over 150,000 people in 20 years, from almost 385,000 in 1990 to almost 546,000 in 2010. Albuquerque's population is diverse and younger than in most other cities. This cultural mix leads institutions to create events to show the richness that multiculturalism provides. For 13 years, the Maxwell Museum at UNM organizes several activities each month where Native Americans make bread and Indian tacos.
They enjoy my food, which is surprising to me. It's a simple food that we make and we love to, and I make for my family, and so I'm happy to come and do the demonstration here for them. At home, it's a community activity to make the oven bread or any of the foods for feast day or something going on at our pueblo. And so people enjoy that. Visitors that come to our pueblo enjoy that. Settlers from a long time ago had things to offer and teach the Pueblo people, and then the Pueblo people also taught them different things that they needed to know, because the Pueblo people lived here already, and they were able to survive the weather and our climate and the way of life here. And we taught the people that came to settle here how to live also, and so they would just help each other, I thought.
The process of making a horno, you got to start with a base, so you don't be way down on the ground. We usually make a base to elevate the oven, the dome, And the dome I made out of lava rock, which we get on our pueblo, on our reservation. And we have lava pits where we get our rock. I start on the bottom and make a row all the way around with a little bit of mud. And then I do another row, put in the rock side by side, and I put a little mud on top of the other rock to kind of hold it together. And I do that, and I make them, I go three rocks high. I'll go 3 rocks high, and I'll let it dry for one day, and then the next day I come back, and then I build up again another three rows, and then I slowly do that, and it takes about a week, maybe a week and a half to do the whole thing. And as I'm going up, I slowly start going in, so I'll make a dome, and that's about it.
Albuquerque offers a wide array of specialized health, legal, and government services, retail shopping, and education. The fastest growing employment centers in New Mexico are the Mesa del Sol area and the I-25 industrial areas, where several corporate headquarters and technical, research, and manufacturing businesses are located. As we have seen, the arteries that have given life to the city always lead to other parts of the United States and Mexico. But Albuquerque is important in its geographic location as a midpoint for other places, allowing travelers a place of rest or an intermediate point for transporting goods. Today, as always, Albuquerque is a crossroads.